Putin's win almost a foregone conclusion, what might another 6 years of Putin's leadership mean for Russia's economy? Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by Charles Ortel. He's a Wall Street veteran, investor, and writer, and joins us from New York. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
So as we know, Vladimir Putin is widely expected to remain president following this weekend's election. What are the most important economic aspects his platform addresses?
Well, Russia really needs to diversify its economy away from being primarily linked to the energy complex. And to do that, eventually, Russia is going to have to forge stronger trading relationships with countries like China and consider abandoning this retrograde quest to put it in a place where it's always being subjected to one form of sanctions or another. Russia is not going to be able to build out its vast nation and its infrastructure, defying the richest countries in the world. It's just not going to work for them. So there's some big imponderables over the Russian economy, and they include the price of energy and the degree to which Vladimir Putin decides he wants to continue down this path, inviting sanctions.
And let's take a look at energy. We know that we saw several major oil producers scrambling to diversify when the commodity crunch happened. So where do things stand now with Russia's oil industry, and how are they diversifying?
Well, the problem with their oil industry is that it is, first of all, the infrastructure required to bring gas and petroleum out of the ground in Russia and then distribute it around the world is very expensive. A lot of it's old, and it faces very challenging differences in the heat in the summer and the cold in the winter to get all this done. So it really needs a lot of capital, and access to foreign capital is key. So that's a real very negative thing. Offsetting that, of course, or challenging that, is the rise of energy production in the United States under Donald Trump, and even before Donald Trump. We're putting out a lot more energy. America is poised to be the #1 producer of energy in the world, I think, by 2020, if not sooner. So you've got challenging supplies coming from us. You've got tension. And these are major league problems. And unfortunately, Russia does not have an economy like the United States, or for that matter, like China, with many, many different sectors that can propel it forward.
Now, what has helped Russia come out of its recession is this boost that we saw in domestic demand and consumption. So what is your outlook on that front? How much can that offset some of the other pressures in the economy?
Well, one good thing for Russia's economy is that the Russian people are not borrowers, binge borrowers, like we are in the United States, and to a lesser extent people are in Europe. So Russia's external debt, partially due to the sanctions, but Russia's external debt and the Russian consumers' propensity to borrow are low, and that's a good thing. And a second good thing for Russia is that wage levels, if you take out the top 10% high earners in Russia and the United States and, say, Germany, and you compare what the bottom 90% earn on average, Russian workers still don't make that much money. So to the extent you want to build out a business using labor, serving, say, the European markets or maybe even exporting it to Asia, Russia is not a crazy place to think about once they get through this sanctions issue.
So as we look at everyday life for Russians, tell us about Putin's plan to boost Russia's middle class and how people are faring at the moment.
Well, I think all countries have special histories, and Russia has a long history going back way before the United States of America. They respect strong leaders, and they see in Vladimir Putin somebody who is facing down everyone around the world and keeping Russia at least returning or having a hope to return back to its former glory days. So I think the Russian people are willing to sacrifice a lot. That's what history shows us over really centuries, if not almost a millennia. So the middle class in Russia is prepared to stick it out, has been prepared to stick it out. And imagine what will happen for them if by some, I think, a set of positive steps, somehow Russia and the West can work its way through these present tensions. But it certainly looks today, as we talk now, as if the tensions are not diminishing in any way.
Now, on top of the tensions that we're seeing with sanctions, there's also this issue of the recent controversies tied to the alleged murder attempt and also the election hacking accusations from the US. So as you look at the business relationship and trade ties between Russia and the US and the UK, and as well as the EU and even its big trading partners, how do you see things heading for Russia going forward?
Well, I really think it's time for clear thinking on what actually happened to U.S. and Western relations with Russia. I think we really need to go back to 1992 to the period when the former Soviet Union fell apart and the new countries emerged. And we need to ask ourselves, what has the United States and the West been trying to do in its relations with Russia? And is it as simple as Republicans want this and Democrats want that? Or are people across the political spectrum in our country and others interested in keeping tension to promote the activities of the defense establishment, the so-called deep state? These are complex questions. And when we get to what really happened in Ukraine to provoke the events there that led to taking territory in Crimea, you need to look at that in a longer context. And I'm afraid we're not yet doing that in the United States. We're not thinking clearly even about the recent election in 2016, where Hillary Clinton lost because she was a horrible candidate.
All right, well, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there. Our thanks to investor and writer Charles Ortel.